Welcome back to another video, and this is my eyeshadow palette review for the month of February. Welcome back, and this I think is maybe the first eyeshadow palette review video on my channel for this year. I might have just been able to squeeze in the previous ones in my December schedule. So how I usually film these eyeshadow palette review videos is that I usually have between 4 to 6 eyeshadow palettes in these ones, and these are new palettes for me in my collection, so there can be sometimes older palettes, sometimes they are genuinely new palettes, and I do think for this video particularly a lot of them are like relatively new. We get so many eyeshadow palette releases like these days that what is new is relatively like short term because there's always obviously something newer, but I think most of these are relatively new. And how I have usually like filmed this is that you will see if they are big palettes, and in this case all of these are bigger palettes, you get 3 demo looks and then swatches on this one. And I go through like each palette that how I felt about them. Sometimes I do rank these, and in this video, am I able to rank these because how should I say this? There were like quite a few palettes in this one that there's like 3 out of the 4 palettes were palettes that I actually had really high expectations for, and I don't think any of them I think there isn't like anything totally bad. Okay, there's the one palette that I was actually really disappointed in that you saw in my end of the year, like last year's end of the year ranking. So if you watched that ranking, you already know which palette I'm gonna probably talk about first because that was the worst one. But like generally there wasn't like, with most of these there wasn't nothing inherently wrong with them, but they might have also not just fulfilled the expectations. So with this one I would say that these are not, except for the last one, like maybe ranked in the order of the best to worst, because like each of these had good things and bad things. Then there's the one palette that I think only had bad things. But yeah, let's actually talk about the palettes, because as I said, this was a bit of a well, maybe not the best month or two in terms of like trying out new palettes. Okay, so first one we are talking about this one, Simply Posh Cosmetics, and this was the Gingerbread Bakery palette. So this was the first palette that I tried from the brand, and I did manage to I did try this during the end of last year, but as I said, I didn't have enough time to film it, like put this into the previous palette review video. So this was my first palette that I tried from the brand, and this has been a brand that has gotten a lot of positive reviews across different indie influencers, so that is why I was kind of like expecting, like having very like high expectations that okay, once they come out with a color story, I'm gonna buy them, and then they released this for Christmas, and I'm thinking that oh great, it's a neutral palette with fun pops of pastel shades, so this is the palette that we're buying. So how this is like divided and how Simply Posh does their eyeshadow palettes is that usually the middle row is shimmers, and then you have like the 2 rows of matte, so it's a bit more matte heavy palette. But I do think in terms of like ratio, even though it's a matte heavy palette, I actually do feel that the range of shimmers in this one is enough to like cover all the matte shades. In terms of gradient, you get shades from light to deep shades. However, something that I will have to say, and this now goes to the formula, and actually now I'm gonna just show the looks and swatches. So from the looks you can see that you did get a range with this one. So you could get a 3 distinctively different looks. I could have actually gone and even made like 4 or 5 looks with this one, because you do get enough like variation. However, especially with this formula, so this in terms of formula, if you have tried Nomad's for Nomad Cosmetics formula, actually maybe I'm gonna, no, we are not gonna see it, so we will try to manage somehow. So in terms of formula, this is pretty close to Nomad Cosmetics formula, except that I don't think they did the formula as well as Nomad does. So for me, biggest issue with this one is that first of all, even the deeper shades had the habit that even though I built them, but when I tried to blend them, they almost blended away. It's a very soft matte formula, which has its place, especially if you're beginning with eyeshadow, but I don't want my formula to be so blendable that it basically blends away with the color. So even with this one, even this very deep shade over here, and then this one, the more reddish kind of deeper shades, even with those ones, I really had to be pretty careful when working with them because they almost did blend away completely. Second, and what is the biggest letdown of this palette, is the pastel shades, and because it's like half of the shades of the palette, I was very much struggling, especially with my end of the year palette declutter. I was almost like already like ready in that declutter to get rid of this one, but because I had not reviewed this one yet, and because I was kind of thinking that I do want to still try this again maybe during springtime when I do like use pastels. But the pastels in this ones are very weak, like considering that we have brands like Blend Bunny who can do very awesome pastels. I I would even say that some of the pastels in the, what other maybe comparable brands there are? Well, Blempany I think is the most famous one, that Blempany really shows that indie brands can do pastels very well. With this one, it's just that even if you tried to build these, they really had trouble showing up. I would have maybe thought that, okay, if you can't do these very light pastels, then maybe you could have stick with these ones. These are more like mid-tone ones in this section over here. With these ones, I would say that this like lilac pink one, and then I would say that the peach one, these did work out quite well, but otherwise, yeah. And then if you take away the pastels, then it's a pretty warm toned like brown palette. But as I said, then with this one there was the issue that the shades in the, especially in the like more brown side, because those are meant to be a deepening up shades, and with this one, because the deepening up shades also don't work out that well, it kind of takes away a lot from the versatility of this one. So from Simple Posh, I would not recommend getting this one. I think I think I would then watch reviews and maybe look for something else. The shimmers in this one were okay. I'd say that some of them, like, I could have maybe done with less of like a topper like shimmers, because a lot of these are like topper like shimmers, but I would still say that the shimmers are maybe the star of this one. Generally, I didn't have any issues with them. It's one of those, like, I think shimmer formulas that, for example, for my eyelid types are a bit better. So for me, at least, these shimmers, some of them creased a little bit, but not horrendously. So it is not as emollient as maybe some other indie shimmers. But yeah, unfortunately, not something that I would recommend. I think I will try this one more time during the springtime, but if I'm still unimpressed as I was when I initially tried this one out, I think it's pretty obvious that maybe during the summer declutter this is going to be getting out of my collection. But such a shame, because I would really like, based on the tons of reviews that I've seen, this brand seems to be able to do good things, so maybe they come out with another palette in the future that is better, that I will like more. Next one is a big one. So this is the Cosy, what was this? Cosy Chronicles, and this was P. Louise's sort of huge holiday palette, and I got this in one of their like holiday mystery boxes. I was a smart person, the mirrors are covered. So this is one of the tiered palettes, and unlike last year, this year they only had eyeshadows. So last year they had one layer of eyeshadows and then they had cheek products. This year we kind of get the cheek products in the big pans, but otherwise it's a eyeshadow heavy palette, and I hope we are somehow on frame. I'm just gonna maybe with this one straight out pop in the looks and swatches, because I'm not gonna be like holding this one. It's like it's heavy as a book. About this particular palette, so this, I think it's pretty on par with P. Louise's other eyeshadow quality. I would say that generally if you're looking for something that is pigmented but still like blends pretty easily, and especially if you're looking for something more neutral tones, I do think P. Louise eyeshadow formula is actually pretty good. Their shimmers are the kind of shimmers that it's a bit of a thinner shimmer formula, but it's actually is a bit better, because since it's more of a thinner and buildable shimmer formula, I feel that it also helps with the fact that the shimmers don't crease as easily. If you layer the shimmers a lot, I did feel that then they kind of do crease during the daytime, but the creasing isn't horrendous. So I think for like a lot of beginners, this could be a good way, and especially considering that the price of it, if you're looking just to like, if you're someone who's just getting into makeup and you want to try a lot of shades, then these like bigger palettes from them could be actually a good way. These go around, if you buy this separately, usually around 50 euros, and I think for 50 euros, considering for example with this one that you're getting 3 different tiers, I do think that's a pretty decent price. But is this anything extraordinary? No, and I do have to say, I actually think that the color story, for example, in the last Christmas palette, that only had like one layer of eyeshadow, but with that one actually I felt that it was this sort of candy cane themed color story. I actually felt that that one was a bit more interesting. With this one, I would say that my biggest issue, for example, is that this tier over here and then the second tier over here, I do feel that the tones are pretty close. The first layer is more like peachy tone, but then when you actually started creating the looks, because the two first layers are pretty warm tone in terms of their color undertones, I did feel that there was like the two looks that you're seeing are quite close looking, and you necessarily wouldn't be able to tell that are they made from the like different layers. The last layer, which was the more sort of like neutral, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's straight out like cool tone, but more like generally like neutral leaning. With that one, I feel that that's different enough. Maybe short about the cheek products. So basically with these ones, you got the how are we? Yeah, so the blushes are in the bottom and the highlighter is in the up. The blushes, I think these were not the best that I have tried from P. Louise. I think they were okay, but not maybe my favorites. Also with the highlighters, I feel that maybe we have gotten better highlighters from them. So I would say that the cheap products in these particular palettes are okay, but I would, for example, not be using these particular palettes for like cheap products. For me, this is something that's primarily an eyeshadow palette. So I think that if you are still able to get this one, I would not maybe say that go and buy this unless you really like your neutrals and you want to try a bunch of neutral shades from the brand, because I do think they have had some, if you're still able to buy the smaller palettes from last Christmas, from last year's holiday collection, I think those are quite a good way to try the like try the formula, but you are not committing into this very like huge antique packaging that is pretty problematic to store. And I also think that for a lot of people, I think the cheap products are maybe something that they will just ignore, because I think a lot of people will be like me, that they're just gonna go for these as for their eyeshadow. So I think from P. Louise, it's a pretty standard from them. It's nothing extraordinary, but I do think that if you do kind of want this kind of formula that is easy to work with and is beginner friendly, and you're more into your neutrals rather than super colorful shades, then something like this might be good for you. But not a must, and I, for example, didn't buy this separately because this was not like something that I thought that I must have in my collection, but because I got it in a mystery box, I thought that this was an okay product to get in a mystery box. Then from Cosmic Beauty, so this was probably the palette that I was most excited about from all the palette releases from the end of next year, and we kind of got halfway there. So now we can say that there have been 2 consecutive Cosmic Beauty palettes that I have had a bit of like high expectations for, but they haven't been met. So this is the Starlight Society palette. They originally released this, I think it was already during October and November. This was released in a set, and then they later on during their Black Friday brought the palette available separately. You were also able to get this on Monoid shop. So as I said, in terms of when I initially saw this color store, I was like thinking that, okay, that is something pretty exciting, something like, yeah, there's like purples and blues that I'm usually not that excited about, but the undertones were kind of like, I looked at them and I thought that, okay, but I would still like to try that one. Then we had the row of cranberries, and then you have the row of like warm sort of neutral and yellow leaning mattes. So my first biggest why this probably let me down was the shimmer formula. So this, well, the Lovers palette, which has become I think notorious in my channel for the fact that the pastels in that one were a failure, and I was pretty disappointed because this brand has been usually pretty good at doing matte colorful shade, but that one had the most beautiful shimmers that the brand had ever come out with, and I was thinking that if we could get an improved, the same good matte formula that they had in previous palettes from the Lovers palette and the shimmer formula that the Lovers palette had, we would have a complete banger. With this one, the shimmer formula is different. It's not as sparkly, and with this one they had this odd, almost bit more creamy feeling, for example this multichrome over here, and I think also this shimmer over here. So they feel a bit they swatch out pretty well because they are very emollient, but especially this multichrome over here, I actually did use it. I can put in the looks and swatches of this one, but especially this multichrome over here, this creased pretty badly on me. It just didn't stay put. This one, it wasn't so bad, I was able to use it, but let's just say that I wasn't a fan of the shimmer formula in this one. I don't know, because after this one they have now come out with 2 palettes, one mini palette, and then there was the Dead Tarot palette that was actually the last launch they had last year, so I'm a bit unsure how comparable this shimmer formula is to the 2 newer ones. But for me, I was really hoping that this had the same shimmer formula that the sort of Lovers palette had. In terms of mattes, this actually did work out much better. So with this one, I would have to say that I think the only matte that I did have to build maybe a bit more was maybe this one over here was something that I had to build a bit more, but not to the extent that I had to with the Lovers palette, where there was the issue that it was with the several pastel shades in that one, where I felt that I had to build and it really didn't show up. So with this one we kind of got back in terms of the mattes being good, but then with the shimmers we kind of went and did something different, and I wasn't necessarily a fan of what they did with the shimmers. Is this still something I'm gonna keep in my collection? Yes, I am, because this is, in terms of color stories, this is pretty unique for my collection, and considering how much eyeshadow I have now tried during the years and how much palettes I have in my collection, that is a achievement. And I do still think I'm gonna be enjoying using this one. But just as an overall, I would hope that in the like next palette that I will be getting from them, I will hope that we will still see the shimmer formula being the same in the Lovers palette. It can be even better, but I think with the Lovers palette we truly had like the best shimmers we had seen. And then if we have the matte quality that is included in this one, then I think we are having a winner. Should you still get this one? I think if you are, like, if you enjoy this color story and if you're okay with the fact that the shimmers aren't as sparkly as the Lovers palette has, and if your eyelids, for example, don't have creasing issues with these more emollient shimmers, then I think you are gonna enjoy this like more than I did. But for me, it was kind of like 50-60. There were some good things in this one, but there were also maybe not some good things in this one. I do have to say, in terms of like packaging design, I am kind of liking the tarot theme they have now had, because I kind of like this one. So we shall see if they continue with this one. So with this one, I would recommend this if you do like the color story and you can look past some of the like issues that I have with this one. And maybe the issues that I had with the shimmers, maybe they aren't issues for you. So maybe for you, this could be one of their best palettes. But for me, there are like things that could have been improved with this particular palette. And then the last palette, and this was the most recent one that I have tried aside from the P. Louise one. So I tried this one and the P. Louise one, they were in my rotation for the same time. So I got my second Nomad palette during the beginning of this year. I think this was this actually the first? I think this was my first palette purchase of this year. Yeah. So this is the Nomad, and this was the, where is the name of this one? Paris, oh, okay, yeah, it's in the Paris La Bohème, I think. The font is very difficult to read because it's in a gold and it kind of gets lost in the packaging. So I think this was their sort of Valentine's-esque kind of release, and I think Nomad has done this in previous years where they necessarily don't bring out an in-your-face Valentine's palette, but rather like something in between. And I do actually think that this was like, as a concept, I actually kind of like this, because you have the option of going to the very romantic traditional Valentine's route, but then you actually do get something grunchier. I'm gonna pop in the looks and swatches now. I actually do have to say I did like the versatility. I got the looks with this one. So I did one look with the sort of like reddish pinkish colors. Then I did one of a more like blue silver leaning look. I think you're seeing it in your screen. And then there was one like grungier, like this sort of mustard, more neutral look that I did with some of the shades also on this side. In terms of formula, I actually do like this one. Unlike simply Posh, Nomad has found the balance with this kind of formula. So this is the kind of formula that I would say if you're a beginner in indie eyeshadow, you would probably enjoy this one. The mattes are very soft and buildable, but with this one at least, I feel that the deeper shades don't blend away completely. So they are on the blendable side, but they actually still stick to your eyelids. So with this one, if you're looking for a more softer blendable formula that still actually builds and you can still actually get depth with, then I would go with this one. The shimmers in this one were also very pretty. I would say that these are very on par with the Fairy Tale Europe palette that I bought from them last year. It was the first Nomad palette. So in terms of shimmers, I do think this is also a very nice formula. It's also a pretty, what I would say, there were like a couple of like shimmers, for example, this multichrome here, it's a bit on the more emollient side, but generally this isn't the shimmer formula that I at least found that creased on my eyelids that much. There were like, maybe on a longer day at the end of the day, there was a little bit of creasing, but nothing that terrible. So this is also, I think, a shimmer formula that I think a lot of people would enjoy. There were some things that I would have switched out, why this is still probably never gonna be my like #1 palette. First of all, to the red side, I think we would have needed one more like mid-tone reddish shade. This one, because the matte formula is on the more buildable side. With this one, you do have to actually build this quite a lot in order for it to show up this deep. I think I would have rather had this deep shimmer being a deeper reddish shade, because the only way that I could, at least with my particular makeup skill, to get depth in the red look was basically that I had to use the purple shade over here, which I think actually worked out pretty well, but I would have just wanted one more like deeper matte red shade, and it would have already like I think made this section a bit better. Then there are two gray shades, so this one here and this one here. Even though their undertones are different, this one is more lilac leaning and this one is more brown leaning. But actually on the eyelid, because I actually used both of these gray mattes in the sort of like blue grayish look you're seeing, they kind of blended in together into a one single shade. So I think for being in a one palette, some differentiation could have been better. And what else? There was something else that I was kind of also missing with this one. I think I would have like wanted one more lighter shimmer. That was only thing, I think the last like additional thing. So the only like very light shimmer is this one over here. Otherwise the shimmers are pretty mid-tone or even quite deep leaning. So in order to brighten up, I think especially with the like both the sort of like reddish leaning look you're seeing on the screen and also the blue silver look you're seeing, I actually had to top both of the looks with this one to sort of lighten up the shimmers to get them to pop a little bit more. So minor things that I would have tweaked with this color story to make it suit my preferences, but this is of course a very individual and subjective opinion. For your makeup style, this palette could work out very well. But I'm pretty happy with this one. I do think that from all the palettes that I tried, this was still the best one, even if this still wasn't like perfect for me. And I do think that if you are eyeing this from Nomad, I think you should get this one, because I do think in terms of quality, very nice. And compared to, for example, the Fairy Tale Europe, which for me the biggest critique obviously was that it only had a row of neutral mattes, this one luckily has a very good ratio of different colored mattes and different colored shimmers. So I do think as a cohesive palette, this is much more improved compared to the like Fairy Tale Europe. So if you're looking for a grungy Valentine's palette and you have like Nomad's quality before, I would at least get this one. This I think was the like from the palettes, even though it's not perfect, it was the best one that I tried doing the last few months. Those were all the palettes that I had to review. Comment down below maybe what have been your top 2 or top 3 palettes that you've been trying out during the last few months. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog, on Instagram. I'll back you in another video. Bye bye!